Hi, I'm Aaron Reyes. I'm a photographer and event organizer with NorCal Talent. Today we're at Discovery Park and we have 5 beautiful models who've joined us today, and we're doing an awesome photo shoot on this lovely day. So, I'm a Canon guy. I was taught on Canon, and I have a mentor who kind of showed me the ways of the Canon body and lenses. I started out using Canon bodies, the 7D and the 5D Mark III like I have here today, when I was doing weddings a few years ago, and it's just stuck with me. I feel comfortable with it. It's very reliable. Like I said, I have the Canon 5D Mark III here, and I really enjoy the focusing system on this body. Good question. I actually have 2 favorite lenses. Today I brought 2 lenses with me, and attached right now is the 24 to 70 zoom Canon lens, but also one of my favorite lenses is what's called the Nifty 50 or the Thrifty 50. It's a prime lens, meaning that it doesn't zoom. I have to move forward and backward to adjust the zoom manually, and that lens is really what started to differentiate myself from other photographers who are just taking snapshots, because of that shallow depth of field that can be achieved by the aperture of 1.8 on that Canon lens. It's only $100. So a lot of people can't wrap their head around that it's only $100 when this, for example, this lens here, I think is about $1,000. But that $100 lens, 50 millimeter prime, has done a wonderful job for me over the years. I even have more expensive prime lenses. I have the 85 millimeter Canon lens, and I still fall back and use the 50 millimeter routinely. So today I brought the 50 millimeter with me. When I'm traveling, I often travel for work, and I take the opportunity to bring some equipment with me. I actually downsize a little bit when I'm traveling. I take my Canon Rebel T5i with me, and a smaller zoom lens from Sigma. It's also a 2.8 aperture, and that just allows me to travel light. It's a lighter camera. With that 2.8 lens that I have on it, it allows me to achieve that shallow depth of field when I want to use it, and I can just throw it in just about any bag. So when I travel, that's what I go with, a 50 millimeter Canon prime lens, and then also the 17 to 24 2.8 from Sigma. You know, reflecting back, I kind of wish I hadn't bought some cheap soft boxes. I was wanting to get into flash photography a little bit just to try it out, and my initial purchase was some of the cheaper, smaller soft boxes, and I just was not able to achieve the look that I want with those smaller soft boxes. So I wish I hadn't bought those. I bought 2, and I bought some speed lights to go along with them, and I just wasn't able to put it together with the style I was looking for. So looking back, that's probably something I regret buying. I should have just saved up and bought the higher end studio type setups. My normal setup when I'm out at a shooting a model, is to put the camera in Aperture Priority, AV, on this Canon. And what I'll do is I'll set it at the lowest aperture number. For example, on this it's 2.8, but often on my prime lens it'll be a 1.8. And as far as ISO, I'll set it at 100 if I can, ISO 100. And for shutter speed, that's going to be done by the camera because I'm in Aperture Priority. So that's usually my setup. For white balance, I will typically set it for auto white balance. But here today, there's a lot of trees. Offering the shade of the trees, I put it in the shade setting, and I was able to achieve the look that I wanted with that. But typically, I'm in auto for white balance. My post-processing workflow, I've got it down to something I feel is pretty efficient process. So it starts by importing my images into Adobe Lightroom. And once I have it in there, I'm scanning and rating my images using a rating system of either 1 to 5. So as I'm flying through my initial scan of the images, anything I think I want to edit, and I'll tag with a rating of 1. Once I'm actually going into the editing process, I am first trying to come up with the composition for the image that I want. So I'm cropping. From there, I'm doing any cleanup in the background, spot removal, making sure there's no blemishes on the image. And I'm also adjusting with some of my initial presets that help me get to the look of the image I'm trying to get to. So I usually have like 1 or 2 initial presets that I go to. From there, I will export the image to Portrait Pro, and that really helps me with the facial retexturing and coloring that I like to achieve in my images. It creates that flawless look for the models, and that actually I have to use that because I don't use a flash very often. So when I'm taking the picture, I'm not using an off-camera flash or an on-camera flash to control the light and molding of the light onto the model. So Portrait Pro helps me do that in the post-processing, where I'm able to contour light around the model's face. From there, it'll go back into Adobe Lightroom, and my export process will be on the long side of the image. I typically export at 180 pixels and 72 DPI. At this point, I only do raw images just for the flexibility in the post-processing and of editing. I've gotten away from JPEG, although obviously when I export my images, it's to JPEG. So the final product is a JPEG. I was lucky enough to have a really good mentor. He's a wedding photographer named Christensen, and I really just followed along and watched his method of shooting. And he didn't have very many flashes, but he always shot wide open aperture. So that's how I kind of molded myself and after him. From there, I really enjoyed the styling of Sean Archer, a very famous photographer, and was always very impressed with the way he was so consistent with his images. You would know his image just by looking at it, and it's simple, beautiful, and it tells a story in his image. I'm still trying to get to that level at some point, but those are the 2 influences that I've had. Of all my pictures that I've taken, I would have to say this image here of Ivy Christensen. This is a year or so ago in UC Davis. Is one of my favorite images. It was right near the end of the day as the light was going down at a natural light shooting, and there was just this one streak of light coming across the field, and I asked her to lay in that stream of light. So you can see the background's fairly dark, but the light on her is great. It's this golden type of lighting on her. So this is one of my favorites. It's a beautiful model, Ivy Christensen. She's since signed with a modeling agency in San Francisco. One thing that's easy to do as a photographer, especially when you're starting out, is to chase all the latest gadgets and the most expensive gadgets. And I feel that you don't need to have the most expensive equipment to have beautiful composition in your images, right? So you have a $2,000 lens, that's not going to give you composition. It's going to give you the image quality, but a lot of lenses will give you image quality that you would need to have a beautiful image. So one thing I would have wished I didn't do so much is try to be envious of expensive equipment, but rather focus on getting the right equipment and the equipment that you are comfortable with, and just mastering that equipment. For example, for me, that's going to be the prime lens. I really love the look of a prime lens, so I put in the effort to master that, even though I'm using a $100 50 millimeter prime lens.